Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode in our series on contemporary Western philosophers. Last time we saw Jaspers a bit intro about his life. Today we'll dwell deep into his philosophy of the world. Now, Karl Jaspers, a German existentialist philosopher, was deeply concerned with the nature of being. And we see that his ideas challenged how we think about reality and existence, and also the role of philosophy in understanding the world. And therefore, let's begin by looking at the first concept, that is on beings and being. Now, Karl Jaspers made an important distinction between being and beings. Now, we need to note being written with capital B, whereas beings in lowercase. Now, what do these two things mean and why is this distinction? Well, this is something we need to remember throughout the course, because being refers to existence itself. So, being with the capital B, it refers to existence itself, and it is the fundamental reality that allows all beings to exist. Now, beings, on the other hand, which is written in lowercase, are things we encounter in the world. And this could be people, it could be animals, it could be objects, planets, and even abstract things like ideas and emotions. Now, imagine a forest. So, the trees, animals, rivers, and the soil in the forest are all beings with lowercase b. Now, they are individual things that exist. But when we speak about being here with the capital B, this itself is a kind of a deeper reality which makes everything possible. So, it makes the forest possible. It is not just the sum of trees and creatures that make the forest, but the very foundation that allows them to be. And therefore, Jaspers argues that throughout history, philosophers have always been concerned with being. They have been concerned with studying this being with the capital B. But many people mistake the study of beings as the study of being. Now, instead of trying to understand existence itself, they focus on specific things within existence. And as a result, Jasper says that we are missing the bigger picture. Next, he speaks about no science of being. Now, it's important to note that Karl Jaspers strongly opposes the idea that philosophy should become a science. Now, science, as we all know, deals with things that can be measured, analyzed, and objectified. However, he says being cannot be turned into an object of study like a rock or a plant or even a mathematical formula. Now, the whole question we may ask as why not? Now, science studies beings, things that exist within reality. But being itself is not a thing among other things. It is the foundation of existence. So, if we try to study being as if it were another object, we reduce it to being with lowercase. Now, let's take this example. Think of love. Now, we can study how the brain reacts when a person is in love. We can also measure the heart rate, or we can also analyze romantic behavior. But there is no scientific study that can fully capture what love truly is. Okay? Because that is an experience. Similarly, being cannot be reduced to something science can measure or define. Why? Because it is beyond scientific observation. And therefore, in a way, we see that Jaspers makes a critique of science and philosophy. He says that some people think philosophy should only be about human thought, about the history of human thought. But Jaspers insists that philosophy should be about being itself. Now, others try to turn philosophy into a tool for science, but Jaspers rejects this because he says that science only studies specific beings. Okay? And science does not study being. Next, he says that some think philosophy should study the total sum of everything that exists. But even this is still just a collection of beings and not pure being itself. So for Jaspers, we say that philosophy is not about collecting facts or building scientific theories. It is about seeking wisdom and understanding existence itself. So it's about seeking wisdom and understanding existence itself. While we can never fully grasp pure being, philosophy helps us recognize its mystery and engage with it in a meaningful way. This is why Jaspers constantly reminds us that we can only experience beings, that is, separate or specific things, but we can never experience being itself. Philosophy should always focus on exploring existence. Philosophy should not be concerned about analyzing facts. And Jaspers tells us that we must resist the temptation to turn philosophy into a science, as that would limit its true purpose. Now, Jaspers also speaks about philosophy as the illumination of being. Now, Karl Jaspers believed that philosophy should not try to study being as if it were an object, like a scientist trying to study an atom under the microscope. Instead, he says philosophy should illuminate existence, helping individuals become aware of deeper reality beyond the everyday world of beings. So, we see that Jaspers argues that philosophy cannot view being from the outside. It is not something that can be measured or analyzed like a physical object. Instead, he says that philosophy's role is to awaken human awareness to the deeper reality of being. And this process is called Existenz, which means illumination of existence. Now, let's take an example of a dark room where objects are present but you cannot see them. So for example, over here, you cannot see exactly clearly what is there, or even for that matter, who is sitting over here. Now, suddenly, somebody switches on the light, or even a dim light for that matter. Now, you don't create any new objects. These objects were already there. For this example, this bottle was there, this table were there, these objects were there, this person was always there in the room. Now, you did not create any new objects when you turned on the light. You simply became aware of what was already there. And therefore, philosophy doesn't create any being, it just illuminates it. It helps us to recognize our connection to being. And therefore, from this small example, we can conclude that being is always there, but we don't always notice it. And therefore, philosophy helps us become aware of our existence as part of a larger reality beyond just our daily concerns. Now, why are there many philosophical systems? Now, since philosophy is about awakening to being rather than providing fixed scientific truths, it is natural that there are many different philosophical perspectives. Now, Jaspers says that if philosophy were a science, we might expect one final universally accepted system. But because philosophy deals with the transcendent and with personal experience, different thinkers will have different ways of explaining and understanding it. Now, for example, we see that different artists trying to paint the ocean. So here we see that some of them may focus on the waves, as we see over here. Some of them may try to focus on the immense or the vastness of the ocean, as you can see in this picture. Others may look at the deep mystery of what lies beneath the ocean. Okay. Others may try to, in a way, see what happens at the surface level. Now, no single painting is the ocean, but each one, in a way, helps us to reveal an aspect of it. Now, similarly, we see that different philosophical systems give us different ways to see being, each helping open our minds to something greater. Now, Jaspers wants us not to take any single philosopher's claim as the final truth, but to see them as attempts to push open the door to deeper understanding. And in this way, we see that philosophy challenges the limitations of positivism, that is, the belief that only scientific knowledge is valid. Next, we move into existence and umgreifren. These are the two important concepts that Jaspers introduces to explain our relationship with being. First is existence as self-transcendent. Now, Jaspers will say that existence is not just being alive, like a table or a tree existing, but he says that it is a deeper sense of human existence where we constantly reach beyond ourselves. And in this way, he says that man is more than man. This means that humans are not just biological creatures. We are always striving for meaning. At the same time, we strive for truth as well as transcendence. Let's say, for example, a person might have a job, eat and sleep like any other living creature, but true existence happens only when they question their purpose, seek deeper meaning, or strive to connect with something beyond themselves, whether through philosophy, art, religion, or personal reflection. Next, he speaks about das umgreifren, that is, the encompassing. Now, this term describes being as a reality that surrounds us completely. And in this, he says that we can never see being directly. Okay, just as a fish never sees the water in which it swims, but we can sense it through different beings, through nature, through human relations, through art, and even through philosophy itself. Imagine you are standing on a mountaintop, looking at the vast sky. Now you might feel a deep sense of wonder, realizing that you are part of something much greater. Now the sky, the mountains, even your thoughts are all manifestations of being. But you cannot see being itself. Why? Because it encompasses you. So finally, we see that Jasper's philosophy of the world helps us to understand philosophy is about awakening. It is not about proving facts like science. Being cannot be studied as an object. It can only be illuminated through human experience. Then Jaspers also told us that different philosophies are different perspectives on the same deeper reality. He spoke about existence, which is our ability to go beyond ourselves, seeking truth and meaning. And finally, when we look at the all-encompassing reality, we realize that being is everywhere, but never an object that we can fully grasp. It is there around us, but we cannot fully grasp what it is. So this brings us to the end of today's episode, where we have dealt with Jasper's philosophy of the world. Next time around, we'll take a look at his philosophy of man. So till then, thank you and see you next time.